Hello, my name is Glenn Dyer, and you are watching Dyer-Situation. Today I'm seeing John Wick Chapter 2. So, I actually didn't hear anything about John Wick until like a week ago. Why is that? Since apparently it's very popular. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. I've heard a lot of news articles about it. I've heard a lot of things like, oh yeah, more John Wick, oh, this would be so cool. So, did I miss something? Well, it did come out in 2014, which is when I was living 20 years in the past, also known as New Zealand. So, it's not too surprising that something like this would have come out. I did see the first movie just now, like a few days ago, and it was okay. It's basically the story where Keanu Reeves is this super awesome assassin. We know this because we're told so many times. And these people who don't know he's a super awesome assassin, they kill his dog and steal his car. Whoa. You get it because it's Keanu Reeves. I said whoa. So basically he goes on this big rampage over something like that. You know, good on paper. When I watched the movie, it was okay. The most interesting thing to me is that, like, at least during the beginning, it was shot kind of like a crime mystery story. Like a lot of just the way the camera angles were. It looked more like we were going to see some sort of investigation going on, and then it turned into an action film. So it was all right. It was all right. It was okay. So then they make a sequel, and it's called John Wick Chapter 2. So, yeah, I'm a little worried about this. I think this might be like the Taken effect, where some movie has minor success, and, like one quotable line or something, and then it gets a whole trilogy, just for that. Because people are so bored and people are so desperate for originality that they'll lock on to anything, no matter how lame, and make a whole bunch of movies about it. So that's what I'm worried about here. So basically I'm thinking this is going to be the exact same story again. I don't know, somebody crosses Keanu Reeves once more, and Keanu Reeves must use his badass assassin skills to get revenge again. I don't know. Keanu Reeves is so bad, by the way. You know, I did just compare it to Taken and stuff, and in many ways it's similar. I mean, Liam Neeson is a very dry actor sometimes, but Liam Neeson has some depth. Keanu Reeves is, he's just hilarious. Whenever he tries to play a serious role like this, it's so funny. Which is the only kind of role he seems to play these days. He's desperately been trying to get away from Bill and Ted his whole life, and he's succeeded with The Matrix. But from then on, he is known as the guy who cannot act. So, yeah, yeah, not to throw any shade at him. I actually like Keanu Reeves. I think he is a fun guy, and things that he's involved in are pretty fun. Just his acting itself, it's like watching sand. It is the driest, most like plain delivery you can ever get. It's kind of amazing, actually. Although I have heard a theory that this makes him the best action star simply because since he is so boring, you can actually project yourself onto his actions very well. So it's like, oh man, I'm John Wick, not Keanu Reeves. I guess I could see that. But yeah, so I'm expecting this one to just be probably okay as well, maybe slightly worse. I'm not expecting much. So let's get to it. I'm very impressed. That was actually an exciting, well-directed, and pretty well-written action film. In fact, I liked it a hell of a lot more than the first. So, that's new. Now bear in mind, I actually did kind of come into this movie kind of wanting to hate it, a little. I know this because, like, at the very beginning, this is still annoying, this is still a genuine tripe here, but the very beginning, during the beginning action scene, which I still think isn't as strong as the others, the first thing that came to my mind, like when they're showing this cool action scene involving cars smashing into each other, was, are there any real stuntmen actually working in Hollywood these days? I ask this question because one of the very first things we see is a man on a motorcycle who slams into a car, right? To get your attention. And it is incredibly distracting because clearly the person who slammed into the car turns into a CGI cartoon at that point and rolls around on the floor as a cartoon. And this happens multiple times during the intro. In fact, there's scenes where an entire car is clearly CG. Super distracting. And honestly, I've seen stunts with actual people that that look so much better. It always looks better when it's a real person who does it. And yeah, it's hard. It's a skill. People die doing it. But that's a life that some people chose. And I'm wondering if honestly, like, all this CGI stuff has just made them obsolete, which is really sad, honestly. I mean, you look at some of the stunts done in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, or something like that. Like, there's stunts that are very similar to ones in this movie, done with real people, and it looks so much better. But still, when the movie starts really going, that's when it draws you in. For one thing, I'm sad that I even have to say this, it is a different story than the first movie. What? Blow my mind. First movie is about this retired assassin, and people kill his dog and steal his car, and he goes on a murdering spree for it. In this movie, the same guy has to pay back a debt. And the guy who he pays the debt back to is a complete asshole, so he tries to work around him on that. Like, it's an actual thing of, it's more of a universe expanding thing. It's more of like an assassin's code, like for this specific organization he works for and stuff. A lot more lore building, and a totally different story. And that's really appreciated. You have no idea how rare that is for a sequel. I know I brought up Taken in the before, but that'll give you a good idea. That is not just a complete carbon copy of the first film, with maybe like one cool looking set piece to distinguish it from the other ones. Like, this is actually a totally different movie. And man, I do love the lore building in this. Like, they had some of it in the first movie, but it wasn't really elaborated on. But in this, like, yeah, there's the one safe house where you can't kill anybody. There's this secret society of homeless people led by Lawrence Fishburne that is not really homeless people. They're just a bunch of God, I don't even know, like assassin/surveillance teams that monitor all of New York. Like, just brilliant little things. Like, this is what I was talking about in my review of Triple X3, or Xander Cage, or whatever you want to call it, is that it had a lot of cool ideas, kind of like this. It's dropping satellites on people's heads was their one, but it was written so poorly, it was so boring, and it didn't make much sense. Like, in universe, they didn't focus on what was right. Like, and it became confusing. This movie, no, they got the focus right where it needs to be. There is a secret society of homeless people, and that is just how it is. And it works, honestly. It works so much better. And the ending of this movie, while it is setting up for a third film, it does it in such a brilliant way, such a really exciting way that I honestly didn't mind. It didn't feel so much as sequel baiting as more like some shit's gonna go down. It kind of reminded me of the ending of God of War 2. I don't know if anyone's ever played that. Well, of course people have played that, but essentially it ends with, like, Kratos and a whole bunch of titans about to set siege on Mount Olympus. And you know some badass shit's gonna go down in the next game. That's kind of how this movie ends. And yeah, it's intense. I'm really excited for the third movie now, and I did not expect that to be the case. Keanu Reeves is still terrible, but he has a charm to him. As I said before, he's not terrible in the way that Leonardo DiCaprio is terrible, where it's frustrating because everyone's like, "Oh, he's so good." No, I'm pretty sure most people would not say that Keanu Reeves is the best actor. So, but it works. It kind of works. His character in this movie doesn't have that much to his personality, so it works for Keanu Reeves. So yeah, there's not much more to say on this. It's just a really well done action film. I don't think it's entirely necessary to see the first movie, just for one reason. The way the first movie is structured, it's kind of made. It's almost as if it were designed to already be a sequel. The first movie is, because the way they talk about him, it's as if there's a bunch of previous events that they allude to, and it's like, oh yeah, he's the biggest badass and stuff. And they have like monologues like, oh yeah, I hired him for this thing and he did these horrible things and stuff. So it's almost like how a sequel will, like, at the very beginning kind of give you the like a brief synopsis of what happened last time. At least the good sequels, so that newcomers aren't that confused, or at least people who saw the last movie 3 years ago won't be that confused. They won't have to be struggling to remember. And it's kind of written like that in the first movie. So in this movie, they do something that is almost exactly the same. So in other words, watching this movie, you will have just as good an idea of who John Wick is and what he's capable of as you would if you sat through the whole of the first movie, just because of the way the first movie is structured. So, not that the first John Wick is bad, but if you're only interested in this movie, it'd be totally fine to watch it out of order. And yeah, comes highly recommended by me, this one. I can't wait to see what this series will produce. So until next time, I'm Glenn Dyer, and you have been watching a Dyer-Situation.